Welcome to our first webinar in a series of webinars related to mental health. As you know, it is Mental Health Week this week. And what an important week to build off of. I hope you can listen to this series of webinars and really make today the day that makes a difference. You being here today means that you care and you want to make a difference. Today is the first webinar in our series of 3 mental health webinars. These webinars are meant to build off each other, but don't worry. If you are not able to attend all 3, you will be able to find them on our YouTube channel in the coming days. Today we will set the stage using the CSA Standard. Tomorrow we will look at the intersection between psychological health and safety and culture. And Friday we will talk about return to work and how psychological health and safety can impact return to work. We will recognize that your time is valuable. Today's webinar will be approximately 45 minutes. And subsequent webinars will be approximately 30 minutes. My name is Michael Pogorzellic. I'm a certified health and safety consultant and work as a prevention consultant at Safe Work Manitoba. Today, Jen and I will be co-presenting this webinar.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Jennifer Dick, and I'm a certified occupational health nurse and work as a prevention consultant at Safe Work Manitoba. I have a passion for this topic, and I hope that I can share that with you today. Psychological health and safety is a topic that is more and more on the agenda, and so it should be. When we hear safety, we often think about physical safety, but there is more to this. Safety and its partner health need to go hand in hand, and this includes psychological health and safety. Psychological health and safety at work is of utmost importance.
We have a short disclaimer for you. This presentation is not a substitute for legal or health advice and should not be relied on as such. Viewers should seek their own legal and health advice and/or follow workplace procedures. Good faith efforts have been made to ensure the information is up to date. Today we want to talk about mental health. We want to share with you how important psychological health and safety is in your workplace. We will do this by understanding the standard and how to implement the 13 psychosocial factors and finish off with some key takeaways. Just by being here today, you are a leader. Let's get started.
Thanks, Mike. So mental health, as defined in the CSA Standard, is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stressors of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. We know that everyone has mental health. Everyone here today has probably experienced a change in their mental health at some point in their lives. But what's really important to note here is that our mental health can be impacted by our workplace. The guidebook, Assembling the Pieces, indicates while our health is primarily our own responsibility, the workplace can and does play a significant role in our ability to manage both our physical and our psychological health. The workplace can play a role in helping or hindering our psychological well-being. What this is saying is that even though we all have a responsibility to be healthy, our workplace can play a role in helping to keep us healthy both physically and psychologically. Mike, would you be able to share some stats about mental health with us?
For sure, Jen. We know that 1 in 5 of us will experience a mental health issue in our lifetime. That's 20% of Canadians. We also know that last week, 500,000 Canadians missed work because of their mental health. Consider also that 2/3 of Canadians spend 60% or more of their time at work. The stats paint a picture for us. They tell us that we have to do something. Dr. Martin Shane wrote a piece called Tracking the Perfect Legal Storm. And a key takeaway from his research is that it's no longer a nice to have, but a need to have when it comes to psychologically safe environments. It's advisable to have a system in place to support employee psychological health and safety. This is the CSA Standard for psychological health and safety in the workplace, and it's often referred to as the standard. The standard is a guide to build our system. We know that a workplace can inspire and contribute to overall mental health where an individual is in a state of well-being. Here's a short video to get us started.
Every day, millions of Canadians go to work. But every week, about 500,000 Canadians cannot because of a mental health problem or illness. And since most of us spend around 60% of our waking hours at work, ensuring our workplaces are psychologically safe is important business. But when it comes to health and safety in the workplace, we sometimes only think about physical health. Mental health, well, it's just not top of mind. But here's why it should be. The cost of mental health problems and illnesses to the Canadian economy is at least $51 billion per year. Employers can see the impact through things like absenteeism, lost productivity, and high turnover. It's a hefty price to pay. The workplace should provide an opportunity to feel productive and thrive. When we're not well, it affects everything we do, at home and at work. While people don't come with a maintenance manual, there is a process organizations can and should follow to prevent harm and promote overall mental wellness. It's called the National Standard for Psychological Health and Safety in the Workplace, and it's the first of its kind in the world. Developed in Canada and used by countless organizations and companies, it's the roadmap for employers to create a mentally healthier workplace. The standard is all about shifting workplace culture to value mental health and safety as much as we do physical health and safety. It provides a framework to assess your current workplace, set objectives, and take action to enhance the programs, policies, benefits, and training you already have in place at work. The standard is voluntary, and there's no single prescribed way to implement it. It's designed to allow for flexibility and customization to effectively implement in your unique organization. But sometimes that leaves employers wondering how to get started. The Mental Health Commission and its partners have created resources to help. Start by downloading the standard and looking at what policies and procedures you already have in place. The Assembling the Pieces Guide and Toolkit will take you step by step through implementing the standard. You could also take advantage of training resources like Being a Mindful Employee, a free online program that introduces employees to the factors that impact mental health and what we can all do to support our coworkers and ourselves. People are your most valuable assets. Commit to creating a psychologically safe work environment and help your employees thrive inside and outside the workplace. You can do this. Start today. Visit mentalhealthcommission.ca.
As we saw, the CSA Standard on Workplace Psychological Health and Safety is a voluntary guideline that workplaces can implement to help in building psychologically healthy and safe work environments. We see more and more employers adopting the standard as a way to incorporate psychological health and safety into how they do business. This in turn is fostering a strong culture around psychological health and safety.
Thanks, Mike. And we know that creating this culture can be looked at in terms of meeting basic human needs. The CSA Standard describes 8 basic human needs that need to be met for people to feel psychologically healthy and safe. And when these basic human needs are met, workers tend to feel more satisfied. Considering the amount of time we do spend at work with leaders and colleagues, creating an environment where these needs are met can lead to a sustaining and creating a really safe space. And as you can see, these basic needs are what most of us want out of life: to feel physically and psychologically safe, to believe in ourselves, to accomplish our goals, to have a sense of freedom where we're not feeling like we're micromanaged, feeling good about ourselves and what our self-worth is, feeling like we belong and that there are equal opportunities within workplaces. Unmet, these can lead to changes in how workers approach work. These can become risk factors that can lead to psychological distress, but when we see them being met, can lead to feeling psychologically healthy and safe. So how do we meet these needs? And this is where the standard goes deeper into creating a system, a psychological health and safety management system, similar to your safety and health management system. Workplaces can either incorporate psychological health and safety into their existing system or build one. The CSA Standard defines a psychologically healthy and safe workplace as a workplace that promotes psychological well-being and actively works to prevent harm to workers' psychological health, including in negligent, reckless, or intentional ways. And when we break that down, I see a few key words within that definition: promote and prevent. Promoting the well-being of workers and preventing harm to workers. When we promote or support the well-being of our employees, what do you think that will do to the workplace culture? How about when we prevent harm? Safe Work Manitoba is in the business of prevention. That's what we do. And what's important here is that we promote and prevent so that we protect our most valuable assets, our employees. The standard has been around since 2013, and I'd like to think that there's a significant amount of awareness around the standard. And today, we're going to more so focus on the psychosocial factors and what implementation might look like. But first, I want to make sure that you know that implementing the standard is not just about implementing the factors. How do those factors fit into the system? What is important to reiterate here is that the psychological health and safety management system is really a system to building psychological health and safety into your everyday. Understanding the factors and how they interplay in the system. And these psychosocial factors can be used to assess and understand your workplace. So building a psychological health and safety management system is really a calculative process that should be done in a very strategic way. It can be broken down into smaller components so that the entire organization really has time to adjust, to understand, and to really build that culture. And as you can see, there are 5 areas in the CSA standard that are key to building your system. The first step is getting your engagement. So understanding where your commitment is, gaining your leadership buy-in, participation. So getting your buy-in from leaders and workers, really building out that business case, understanding what needs to happen. The second step is planning. So having a well thought out plan on how you're going to achieve the goals of building a psychologically healthy and safe workplace. And this will outline confidentiality, it'll bring understanding to your current landscape, and really include a review of those 13 psychosocial factors to really understand what's going on in your workplace. The third step is around implementation, and this is where you take that plan, where you're going to implement some of those changes. And this is the part of the process where you'll take the information you got in any surveys or reviewing of the factors and really implement those changes. And this is where we're going to spend some time today. The fourth step is evaluation and corrective action. And this is where those changes that you've done are evaluated and reviewed. Understand where those items you implemented have made a difference. And if they haven't, ask why and build out further corrective action. The fifth step is management review. And this is where you look at, once you've implemented your psychological health and safety management system, this doesn't happen overnight. It won't happen in a month. It's a process that can take years. It's not something that can be built and put on a shelf. It's a fluid process that really never stops. There's always going to be something to improve upon or to do. Management review is done every 2 years to ensure that continuous improvement process continues on. Let's turn our attention to the 13 psychosocial factors and what they do.
So the CSA Standard is rooted in 13 psychosocial factors that are immensely impactful in creating psychologically healthy and safe environments. The factors, when not being met and addressed, can quickly impact mental health at work. These factors are so important. They offer the workplace a place to start. It's important to understand what these are and how they fit within the system. As you can see, there are 13 factors, and they include psychological support, organizational culture, clear leadership and expectations, civility and respect, psychological job fit, growth and development, recognition and reward, involvement and influence, workload management, engagement, balance, psychological protection, physical protection, and other chronic stressors identified by workers. These factors can be reviewed in a variety of ways. Guarding minds at work or the COPS OQ are just 2 tools that your workplace may consider. Just to be certain that if your workplace does do a survey on these factors, be prepared for the information you might receive. I would encourage you to look at ones that might be considered negative as an opportunity to strengthen psychological health and safety in your workplace. I would also encourage you to ensure that if you conduct a survey, Be ready to provide the survey information to your workers and take action. Implementation is a key part of this scenario. I will pass it on to Jen to share with you some ideas what your workplace can do to implement programs, policies, or resources to meet the needs of each of these 13 factors. Let's get started.
Thanks, Mike. The first factor that we'll talk about is engagement. And engagement is really seen when employees feel connected to their work and are motivated to do their job well. So it's essentially creating connection. Employees feel that they're a part of the team and part of decisions that are being made. They are engaged. And when this is seen in workplaces, an organization might consider looking at building engagement through profit sharing, for instance. If an employee knows that they share in the profits, they may feel more connected to work. This is also true as we look at team goals or shared missions. If everyone is on the same page and has the same vision, everyone is looking to that same goal. That can really build out your engagement at your workplace. This can also include making sure team members are using their skills and their talents to their fullest and leading by that example. We also see training on building staff engagement or talent development. So really engaging staff to be ambassadors for the organization. And communication and using focus groups can also help to build engagement in the workplace. So the next is involvement and influence. And really involvement and influence is when employees are included in the discussions about how their work is done and how important decisions are made. And this is a really important factor because how many of us have been told what to do without having any involvement in that decision? How did that make you feel? It likely didn't foster a sense of wanting to take one for the team. Perhaps it actually created some animosity. So really involving staff in decisions and allowing them to have some influence over decisions can really make a huge difference in a work environment. This speaks to having joint worker and management committees, as this gives a platform where workers and leaders can come together on important decisions. For example, if there's a psychological health and safety committee, having both employer and worker representation can mean that ideas can be taken further, that decisions can be made. This is also seen when procedures are being developed. So when managers and workers come together to develop a process, we see that those individuals doing the job have a say in how the job is done safely. We know and understand that change is difficult, but acknowledging the impact on workers by consulting on how best to manage change can foster a culture where everyone feels involved in the decision. We see this in management styles as well. Fostering a culture where workers are empowered and accountable for their actions makes them more aware of their impacts. So really avoiding micromanagement. As we want to build trust in workers, give control over their tasks and how to organize their work. It really does empower people.
Next is growth and development. Employees receive encouragement and support in developing their interpersonal, emotional, and job skills. This helps in current jobs, but also prepares them for future positions. This can be in the form of apprenticeship programs or mentoring opportunities that help to facilitate skill development and encourage interpersonal or emotional growth. Progression mapping, which directs growth and development, can also be looked into. This involves outlining where a worker can go in the organization to further one's career. Training and development of interpersonal or emotional skills helps to develop communication within an organization and moves the organization towards creating a strong culture where workers feel safe.
We'll now talk about clear leadership and expectations. This is where there is effective leadership and support, so employees know what they need to do, how their work contributes to the organization, and whether there are changes coming. Clear job descriptions contribute to clear leadership and expectations. When workers know what is expected of them, they understand what role they play. This leads to having accountability mechanisms such as explicit expectations for how leaders and workers should behave. This can be discussed when providing job performance feedback. Regular communication is extremely important as well. When communication is open and effective by holding team meetings or town halls, workers really understand and know what to expect. The unknown often leads to perceptions, rumors, and misunderstandings of a clear vision. We also see how training can contribute to clear leadership and expectations. When leaders are trained in effective communication, emotional intelligence, and problem-solving skills, they can really clearly communicate with staff more frequently and clearly. This might also be an opportunity to support mentoring programs for new leaders.
Next, we have organizational culture. The degree to which a work environment is characterized by trust, honesty, and fairness. It is a set of shared beliefs, values, and expectations that a group of people all share in common. Building an organizational culture takes time, but it can be done. When a workplace is respectful and honesty and fairness are modeled, we see how staff members come together as a team and want to fulfill the mission and values of an organization. This might include having conflict resolution mechanisms, understanding how to resolve conflict in an effective manner. This can come in the form of training or policies, but not just a policy that gets developed, one that is implemented and everyone understands what to do. We've all heard about communicating effectively, but what does that mean? How do we communicate effectively? Here's a short video that I did with my colleague about effective communication.
Although someone wants help, there are times when they do not know what to say, and because of that, they may not say anything at all. Are you okay is a conversation starter that can be helpful to keep in your toolkit, so you can open the door to communication.
Great point, Mike. We know that communication is often key to creating a positive work culture. And when workers receive clear communication on what to expect and clearly understand what's going on, they may respond better. So having clear expectations creates an environment where workers know what to do and how to respond.
The Mental Health Commission of Canada provides the following tips for communication as part of the Mental Health First Aid Canada. So tip number 1 is approach and assess. You want to invite the person to talk. If there is a risk of suicide or harm, you want to ensure you reach out to first responders.
And we might think about starting our conversation by saying, I've noticed that you say you are sad. How are you doing? And how long have you been feeling this way?
And tip number 2 is listen without judging. Help the person speak freely by listening and asking questions, without judging or telling the person what to do.
A good way to start this conversation is to just reiterate what the person is saying without judgment. It sounds like you're really worried about your job. Is that right?
And tip number 3 is you want to make sure you're giving reassurance. This helps to counter any shame associated with mental distress, reluctance to talk about, or reluctance to reach out for help.
This is a really hopeful message, and providing reassurance to the person you're speaking to is a good way to start this conversation. Given the situation, it's understandable that you're experiencing this. There are supports available that have helped others.
And tip number 4 is you want to encourage other supports. You want to help the person to find ways that others can support them during this time.
For sure, and asking the person if they have additional supports is a way for them to reflect and remember that they can reach out within their family, friends, or community. A good way to start this conversation is how might a family member help or a community member?
And finally, the last tip is you want to encourage professional help. Help coworkers to identify appropriate professional supports.
For sure, as Mike said, ensuring that a person knows that there's professional help and encouraging them to seek professional help. This can be done by saying, what has helped in the past? Would it help to call your family doctor or mental health specialist?
And you just want to remember that although it may be difficult to have the conversation, feel free to use these conversation starters and simply maybe just ask, are you okay? To conclude, here's a short video from CCOHS.
Life can be stressful.
It can be hard to cope.
But the workplace can be a place of support.
A place of healing.
Reach out.
Check in.
Speak up.
Show you care.
Start with a question.
Are you okay?
Hey, you alright?
You okay?
A few simple words can make a big difference.
Comfort.
Support.
Reassurance.
You're not alone.
Many of us have been there before.
Mental,
Or physical.
Illness is illness.
So go ahead.
Start the conversation.
Hey man, you okay?
Organizational culture also includes team building. Team building is a way to come together and build relationships. An organization's mission and value statement should be developed with input from everybody within the organization. This creates accountability and ensures all employees are invested in the organization's mission and its values. Diversity and equality programs are also important because everyone has a say. Every part of the organization is represented in decisions.
We'll now move into civility and respect. This is where employees are respectful and considerate in how they interact with one another, as well as with customers, clients, and the public. Creating a respectful workplace culture should be promoted and reinforced. It should be how workplaces do business, and where safeguards are in place to ensure that disrespectful behavior is addressed and dealt with immediately. This is in addition to having a policy outlining your respectful workplace policies. We know that respectful workplace policies are in workplaces as a tool to detail expectations within the workplace. It details consequences and shows new staff and existing staff that there are policies in place on how to act and what will be done should a dispute occur. Conflict resolution mechanisms are an important piece of making sure that issues are resolved in an effective manner. This can also be in the form of third-party interventions or formal mediation. We also see diversity programs and training on mental health concerns is an important as it helps to contribute to a psychologically safe environment free from stigma. Training on how to have difficult conversations is really important because our words and how we react to situations can impact whether a worker feels psychologically safe to talk about any concerns.
And next we have work-life balance. So this is one of the biggest factors workplaces play a role in. As workers in an organization, we need to work and then go home and still have energy to be a parent or spouse. We spend many waking hours with colleagues, but at the end of the day, the work brain needs to turn off and we need to have a personal life. Fostering work-life balance at the workplace can be seen when there is flexibility. Of recent times, we've seen flexible work being a great option. Work from home, hybrid work conditions, or job sharing have increased our ability to ensure work-life balance. It's also important to implement overtime maximums to ensure that workers are not working overtime and missing out on home time. Leaders need to model a work-life balance behavior. End of day, they should not expect someone to respond to an email at 7 p.m. when the workday ended at 4 p.m. Balance can also be seen when workplaces offer an on-site gym or classes to support physical activity and promote health and wellness. Communicating the importance of a work-life balance and modeling this behavior demonstrates that this is the way workplaces do business.
Next, we'll move into psychological support. And this is where workers believe their coworkers and supervisors are supportive of workers' psychological health concerns and respond appropriately. This is where you can review your benefits package. What does it include? Many of us know about employee assistance programs or EAP, but what else does our benefits package include? Can a worker utilize the services of a psychologist or psychiatrist? Is there access to a mental health professional? Are prescription medications covered? This is where you can provide detailed information on how to access these resources. It's also important to be aware of your trauma response plan. Do you have one? What does it include? There are programs through sources that will provide debriefing or diffusing services. These services may also include training on mental health awareness or resiliency. It's also important to train supervisors on how to respond to mental health concerns. This is really important because when someone responds in a kind, non-judgmental way, they can really make a difference. The training can come in the form of mental health first aid, or might even be emotional intelligence training or supervisor training. Accommodations and return to work programs are also very important. Adding in a psychological support system where there are regular check-ins with occupational health or disability management can help to foster healthy return to works, or be able to see that something might be becoming a challenge. This might also include a system where someone is off work, maintains regular communication with the workplace. Hear more on return to work in the third webinar in our series. We also know that communication is key, and really having those tools and supports readily available, having a resource list readily available. This really helps to create an environment where everyone feels safe to discuss mental health without fear of being stigmatized or discriminated against. And this is a really important point that has become really a passion of mine to fulfill. In my professional career, I'd love to see us get to a place where no matter where you work or what role you are in, you feel supported and safe to talk about mental health without fear of being stigmatized.
And next we have psychological job fit, or in other words, demands of the job. Here the employee's interpersonal and emotional competencies fit the requirements of their position. This can be assessed through a job demand analysis or fitness to work reports to ensure that the worker has these competencies to be productive in their position.
Next, we'll move on to recognition and reward. This is where there is appropriate acknowledgement and appreciation of employees' efforts in a fair and timely manner. This might include regular acknowledgement and celebration of performance or years served. We might see Worker of the Month or open acknowledgement of an achievement, looking to those individuals who have gone the extra mile at work. And this includes recognizing not only the outcome, but also how much effort has been put into a project. We see this in job performance reviews, so getting your annual review of performance can really help to make sure workers understand that they are accomplishing goals and that they are not going unrecognized. And not only are the annual reviews important, but also the informal feedback. You did a great job in that meeting. We had some wonderful reviews on your training, so keep up the good work. These small gestures can really provide that positive reinforcement for workers to continue to strive for excellence. Training can be done on how to communicate this in an effective manner. And we might also see that some workplaces offer incentives for a job well done. This can include bonuses or time off, but care should be exercised in this as we all want to foster that strong work-life balance, and working overtime to achieve some of these may impact other psychosocial factors.
So the next psychosocial factor that we're going to talk about is workload management. Ensuring tasks and responsibilities can be accomplished successfully in the time available. Do you feel like the past 18 months has brought this factor to the forefront? I often talk to people in here, I'm so busy. What can workplaces do to address this factor? Consider overtime maximums, or taking a look at the distribution of work. Are supervisors giving all the work to a couple of people rather than dispersing it amongst the group? Here we can also look at planning for vacations and making sure there's ample coverage. It can also be training staff on job expectations and prioritizing work. Providing education on how someone can manage workloads is helpful because not everybody has the ability to prioritize and figure out what to do first. It's also important to provide training and awareness on recognizing if the workload is too much and signs to watch out for with respect to psychological harm. This might come in the form of resiliency or stress management training. Leaders should be aware of how to recognize symptoms in workers. In addition, consider adding some flexibility to deadlines, especially when there are high workload demands. Communication is key in workload management. Communicating about the management of workload and streamlining the process may make it easier on workers.
We'll now move to psychological protection. And this is really where employees' psychological safety is ensured, where employees are protected from bullying, harassment, and violence. Employees feel safe asking questions and identifying hazards. Psychological protection or psychological safety is another very important factor. This is when workers feel safe to put themselves on the line without fear of negative consequences, removing barriers and creating an environment free from stigma. And now that we know what it is, what can workplaces do? Workplaces ensure that they can ensure they have harassment and violence policies that are up to date, understood, and trained on, and everyone knows how to access and feels comfortable talking about them. The workplace should have ongoing training and communication about harassment and violence policies. These are legislated requirements. Training on mental health awareness and mental health first aid. So really being aware of what symptoms to look for and how to help, how to effectively communicate about mental health. So orientating staff to policies and information on psychological or psychosocial factors or stressors. Training is also valuable for leaders in conflict resolution, so really looking to how to effectively resolve conflict. We also look to reporting and understanding the importance of reporting incidents. And this is how corrections can be made to processes or procedures. Reporting of near misses, as well offers the added knowledge of how to correct issues, even if it's a near miss. Understanding where to turn if there is a concern or issue. This is extremely important because not only is having an EAP program important, but also knowing how to access other community resources if EAP is not available. Leaders can help to remove the stigma of reaching out for help. They can help to make someone feel comfortable in either asking or reaching out for help. It's also important to know what to do in a crisis situation. If you have ever had a critical incident at your workplace, knowing what to do to help staff members is imperative. What is the process? Who do you connect with and on what timeline? These are all important to know.
And finally, for our last psychological or psychosocial factor, we have protection of physical safety. Here, employees' physical safety is ensured. Employees feel safe asking questions and identifying hazards. Consider what is in place at your workplace to protect the physical health of workers. When someone is feeling uncomfortable because a machine is not guarded properly, it can create potential stress and anxiety, causing psychological harm. Having a robust health and safety program where hazards are identified and controlled will help to create a culture of safety. Making sure workers have the appropriate tools, resources, and training will keep everybody safe. We go to work every day, and our expectation is to come home at the end of the day in the same way we went to work. This is an expectation that is not unreasonable. Making sure policies and protocols are up to date and trained on, also understanding legislated duties that are required by law. We can also look to robust programs and or health and safety certification. Doing reviews or audits of workplace programs can help identify gaps or areas of improvement. And finally, looking at training on physical hazards and how they can impact psychological health and safety. Training provides clear information that helps workers gain knowledge and skills to cope with psychological impact of incidents and accidents.
So the next steps is to remember that this is part of a larger system. You really need to look at reviewing the earlier steps as well. Look at these considerations as well. Look at other elements when looking at implementation. We know that change is difficult. There might be something that gets implemented that not everybody is on board with, or maybe they don't understand. So having a solid change management strategy will help to ensure all workers understand the change. And this really goes hand in hand with a communication plan. So understanding the why, being open and transparent can go a long way to building a culture of psychological health and safety. It's also about ensuring that throughout this entire process, the workplace is aware and prepared for critical events, knowing what to do, where to go, and having the knowledge and experience to deal with critical incidents. Check out the Psychological Health and Safety Toolkit for the link to resources across Manitoba.
So now we're at key takeaways. A key takeaway for today is that you understand the implementation of the 13 psychosocial factors and that they're part of a larger system. And you have to build that system. Don't skip the planning stage. A good plan will elicit an even better system. Understand that implementing the factors will take time. It won't happen overnight. You need to be strategic in implementing. If you think back on a time when you were bombarded with change, it was likely difficult to keep up. Take your time and be strategic. Survey first and find your areas of opportunity. Be prepared for all answers and look at them as opportunities to make change. By being here today, you are showing that you want to make this change and build psychologically healthy and safe workplaces.
And that's a really great point, Mike. We really want to challenge you as leaders in psychological health and safety to really take a moment and reflect and ask yourself this question. What is one thing you're going to do when you get back to your own workplace that's going to support psychological health and safety in the workplace? And then go back to your workplace and answer it. You were a leader in this, and I challenge you to take this time and move forward.
So here's a list of resources we used to build this webinar. Please take a look at them. They have an abundance of information, and they are definitely great resources to look at. So that concludes our presentation on navigating the standard. We hope you have been able to take away some information that will help you understand and navigate this standard. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to Jen or I.
And stay tuned for 2 more webinars in the coming days. We hope you will join us for our Mental Health Week series. And don't worry, if you can't make it, these will all be on our YouTube channel for viewing. On behalf of Safe Work Manitoba, thank you for watching our virtual presentation. In the coming days, you will receive an email with a link to a list of resources, Q&As, and a survey. You will also be able to review the complete recording of this webinar and share it with your colleagues. Be sure to visit safemanitoba.com to view resources and to learn even more about keeping yourself and your workplace psychologically healthy and safe. Thank you.